Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 3, Text 24 onwards. Shocham tapasthitikszam cha maunam swadhyaya marjavam brahmacharya mahinsam cha samatvam dvandva sangyayo. So Sri Prabhuji, first he described the qualities of spiritual master, now he is describing what the disciple should do. To serve the spiritual master, the disciple should learn cleanliness, austerity, tolerance, silence, study of Vedic knowledge, simplicity, celibacy, non-violence, and equanimity in the face of material dualities such as heat and cold, happiness and distress. Purport. Shocham or cleanliness refers to both internal and external purity. One should remain externally clean by bathing with soap and water at least once, and if possible, 3 times daily. Yes, Prabhupada said 3 times actually. One is considered internally pure when he is free from the pollution of false pride and egotism. So difficult to give up that thing, free from false pride and egotism. Tapa or austerity means that despite the irrational impulses of the mind, one should remain fixed in executing his proper duty in life. Specifically, one must control burning anger and the urge for wanton sex life. If a human being does not control the impulses of lust, anger, and greed, he loses his power to understand his actual situation. Human life is a golden opportunity to solve the overwhelming problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. And if we use the human life just for lust, anger, and greed, just to satisfy our desires, how are we going to go away from birth, death, old age, and disease? Every human being can achieve spiritual perfection by dedicating the fruits of his prescribed work to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna clearly states, Sve Sve Karmani Abhitata. One does not have to adopt a monastic life or live in the forest as a yogi. One can achieve perfection by dedicating his occupational duties to the Supreme Lord. Similarly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said, Namashira kari yatane tumi thakaha apanakaja. If one sincerely takes shelter of the holy names of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, he will achieve spiritual perfection within the compass of his normal daily activities. So tapa and austerity, that also has to be done. A real austerity for us is chant the holy names of Krishna or follow the 4 principles and get up early morning for Mangal, read Prabhupada's scriptures, do some service. That is real austerity. We don't have to go to the Himalayas to perform austerity. Unfortunately, if a human being neglects the regulative principles of civilized life that prohibit illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, he will surely be overwhelmed by the waves of lust and anger, which completely cover one's consciousness of the reality of spiritual life and draw one to engage in the phantasmagoria of the temporary material body. So human life is meant for tapasya. Even Rishabdev said to his sons, Tapo divyam patrika yena sat. Tapo divya, you have to do tapasya to get the best. Shuddhyate asmat brahma sokyam anantam. Means then you get shuddh, purified, and then you enjoy the brahma sokyam, spiritual happiness, unlimited. But that starts with tapasya. Thus, a man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and burns like fire. Therefore, the word tapaha or austerity in this verse indicates that one must remain in his prescribed duty and not become impatient or unregulated due to the waves of lust, anger, and greed. And then next quality, the word titikshvam or tolerance indicates that a transcendentalist must be forgiving. The material world is full of embarrassing and irritating situations. And unless one is inclined to be very much forgiving, he will become infected by a vindictive mentality which spoils one's spiritual consciousness. So, vindictive mentality or revengeful attitude not just spoils one's spiritual consciousness, it actually spoils one's physical health also, mental health as well. So, tolerance, very important. Maunam or silence means that one should not speak on worthless or frivolous topics, but should discuss the actual issues of human life, such as going back home, back to Godhead. Remaining completely silent is a symptom of ignorance. A stone is silent due to lack of consciousness. Since every material thing has its spiritual counterpart, the Vedic Shastras contain negative and positive injunctions. Corresponding to the negative injunctions against speech is a positive injunction that one should always speak about Krishna. So that is real silence. Silence, not speaking at all. That's actually not using the power of speech which is given by Krishna in his service. That is ignorance. But we speak everything except Krishna's katha. Satatam kirtayantam. Krishna says one should always speak about the Supreme Personality of God, glorifying His holy name, fame, pastimes, entourage, and so on. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also it is stated, Shrutavya kirtitavyascha. One should always hear about, glorify, meditate upon, and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. In the verse 21 of this chapter, it was stated, Shabde Pare Janishna. The bona fide spiritual master is expert in Shabde Pare, or the transcendental sound vibration, describing the spiritual world. One cannot artificially remain empty-headed or speechless, as advocated by foolish proponents of concocted systems of meditation and yoga. And there are a few temples where when we enter this, you cannot say anything. Just sit down quietly and meditate on whatever you want to meditate on. Just don't speak, don't say anything. But this is not what Krishna wants. Krishna himself says, Satatam kirtayantam. Satatam. Satam means always. That is the right use of power of speech. But one should be so absorbed in the loving service of Krishna and so lovingly attracted to praising Krishna that one has not a single moment free to speak nonsense. That's the purport of the word maunam. And the next quality is swadhyaya, means that one should study Vedic literature according to his individual ability and also teach others. In Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned that a Brahman should have the qualities of Jnana and Vijnana, scriptural knowledge, and practical realized application of knowledge. Specifically, one should study those books which increase one's desire to serve the Supreme Personality of God. His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has written in a few short years a veritable library of transcendental knowledge. It's been practically seen throughout the world that when the principle of Swadhyayam or Vedic study is applied to these books, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the Nectar of Devotion, the sincere reader becomes infused with ecstatic determination to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The entire society, ISKCON society, is expanding all over the world on the basis of this transcendental literature. Swadhyayam does not indicate speculative or imaginary interpretations of religious scriptures. Nor should one try to read many books to increase his false prestige as a so-called scholar. So that's Rupa Goswami has also warned us in Nectar of Instruction. Atyahar prayasasya. So atyahar, ahar doesn't mean only eating food. It's anything that we put inside us. And study, too much study. Of course, everybody is different. Everybody's capability is different. Just like for eating also, elephant eats differently than an ant or any other animal. So what we have to see our limit. So even study also. If we study too many books, that can be problematic. So one should read those books which inspire practical spiritual advancement in knowledge and renunciation, as exemplified by the books of Srila Prabhupada. And then the next quality is the word arjavam, indicates simplicity or straightforwardness. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, Swachhata or clarity, transparency, is a synonym for straightforwardness. Transparency, clarity, means no hiding of anything. Unless one is pure in consciousness, he will adopt many crooked means. Straightforwardness does not indicate that one should insult others in the name of honesty, but that one should speak the humble truth. The word brahmacharyam or celibacy indicates either renouncing completely the association of women or following strictly the Vedic principles of householder life, which regulates sex life for the purpose of procreating saintly children. And then ahimsa indicates that one should not commit violence against any living entity. Unless one is aware of the subtle laws of karma by which a living being enjoys and suffers, one cannot actually practice ahimsa or non-violence. Ultimately, the material world is full of violence, and the laws of nature which impose old age, disease, and death upon every living creature are themselves filled with violence. Therefore, if somehow or other one can convince others to surrender to Krishna and thus release themselves from the violent laws of the material nature, that is a perfection of ahimsa. Also, another aspect of ahimsa is, first of all, if we are not engaging ourselves in the service of Krishna, then the soul will definitely go to hell, if not in the lower species of life. So that is violence against the soul. We all talk about violence against the body, but what about the violence against the soul? So violence against the soul is if you're not engaging in the service of Krishna. So that is violence against ourselves. And if we are not helping others to engage in the service of Krishna, that is again violence against their souls, those souls. So if we are not preaching, if we are not spreading this or giving out this message of Krishna to others, then we might not be committing violence against their bodies, but we are committing violence against the souls. So we have to try to preach. We have to try to bring people under the lotus feet of Krishna, to take shelter of Krishna. That is real ahimsa, non-violence. Samatvam dvandva samagyo indicates that one should keep a cool head even when disturbing material dualities become manifest. Krishna also says, Matra sparshastu kunte shitoshna sukha. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception of ocean of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. This tolerance, samatvam, means tolerance is one thing, and samatvam, being cool-headed or remain just cool-headed or equally disposed, whether happiness or distress, doesn't matter. Then one can make progress spiritually, and that kind of disciple is the right disciple. Text 25. Sarvatrama Eshwaran Viksham Kavalyam Aniketatam Vivikta Chira Vasanam Santosham Yena Kenachit. One should practice meditation by constantly seeing oneself to be an eternal, cognizant spirit soul and seeing the Lord to be the absolute controller of everything. To increase one's meditation, one should live in a secluded place and give up false attachment to one's home and household paraphernalia. Giving up the decorations of the temporary material body, one should dress himself with the scraps of cloth found in rejected places or with the bark of the trees. In this way, one should learn to be satisfied in any material situation. Wow. One should dress himself with the scraps of cloth. Well, these days, this is the fashion to wear tattered clothes, right? But that doesn't mean one is becoming spiritually advanced. This is the fashion these days. That's why kids wear these things. But this is to help increase one's meditation. So he's reducing his material needs. That is very, very important. Kavalyam, or living in a secluded place, indicates a place free from material disturbances. Therefore, one should live in the association of Vaishnavas, where the common goal is advancement in Krishna consciousness. Especially in the Kali Yuga, if one tries to remain physically isolated from all others, the result will be degradation or insanity. Aniketatam means that one should not be intoxicated by the ephemeral satisfaction of one's home sweet home, which will vanish at any moment by the unforeseen circumstances produced by one's previous activities. So, intoxicated by the ephemeral satisfaction of one's home sweet home, because then we become just complacent and in our comfort zone. In this age, it is not actually possible to dress in tree bark in modern cities, nor to wear mere scraps of cloth. Previously, human culture accommodated those practicing tapasya penances in the interest of spiritual advancement. In this age, however, the most urgent necessity is for preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita throughout human society. Therefore, it is recommended that Vaishnavas dress with clean and neat cloth, covering the body decently so that the conditioned souls will not be frightened or repulsed by the severe penances of the Vaishnavas. In the Kali Yuga, the conditioned souls are extremely attached to material sense gratification, and extreme austerities are not appreciated, but are instead considered abominable denials of the flesh. So, extreme, even what to speak of extreme austerities. Even when we get up early morning to go for Mangla, people think we are very austere. Instead of doing all sort of nonsense, we are sitting and chanting and reading Prabhupada's books. People think we are very austere. This is not austerity. It's not at all. Of course, austerity is required for spiritual advancement, but the practical example set by Srila Prabhupada in successfully spreading the Krishna consciousness movement was that all material things should be used to attract people to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Vaishnavas may at times adopt ordinary dress to serve the higher principle of distributing Krishna consciousness. In any case, one should learn to be satisfied in any material situation so as to prepare for the moment of death. According to Bhagavad Gita, at the time of death, the particular consciousness we have created in this life will carry us to our future situation. Therefore, human life can be seen as a type of practice for successfully fixing one's mind on the absolute truth during the severe trials of death. So human life is for practice. Practice to go higher up. For that, whatever is required, austerities and cleanliness and tolerance, whatever is required to make spiritual austerity, spiritual advancement. That's what we should do. Human life is not for anything else. Everything that is spoken of these days, or being human, or this or that, make money and get this knowledge, get this degree, open this business. It's nothing, nonsense, complete nonsense, wastage, and that is real violence actually. Text 26. Shuddham Bhagavate Shastre Anindam Anyatra Chapi Mano Vaka Karma Dandam Cha Satyam Shamadama Avapi. One should have firm faith that he will achieve all success in life by following those scriptures that describe the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. At the same time, one should avoid blaspheming of the scriptures. One should rigidly control his mind, speech, and bodily activities. Always speak in the truth and bring the mind and senses under full control. So this is the beginning of yoga, when we control the mind and the senses. How do we control? How do we engage the mind and senses? In Bhakti Yoga, we engage them in the service of Krishna. That is our way of control. But without the control of mind and senses, no way we can make progress. The definition of Shraddha or faith is given as follows in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shraddha Shabda Vishwas ka Sudra Nishchay. Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Kritvai. That Krishna Bhakti is the essence of everything. By rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Means you don't need to do any karma or any yoga, hatha yoga or jnana yoga, anything. Just Krishna Bhakti. This confident, firm faith favorable to the discharge of devotional service is called Shraddha. This is Shraddha. Thus, a devotee should be confident that by carrying out the instructions of Bhagavad Shastra or Vedic literature that directly rather than indirectly describes devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will easily achieve all knowledge and the perfection of life. So this Shraddha has to be there, and that is when we can carry out our services without deviation and without any confusion and without anybody coming and distracting us. Sudra Nishya, Krishna Bhakti Kaila Sarva Karma Kritvaya. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Mano Vaka Kaya Danda was strict control of the mind, speech, and bodily activities, means Manasa Vachika Kayika. That is, one should rigidly abandon all sinful activities with his mind, speech, and body. As Srila Prabhupada has repeatedly pointed out, sense control does not mean stopping sensory activities, thus becoming like a dead body, but rather engaging one's mental, vocal, and bodily activities in the service of Krishna. That is real sense control. Srila Rupa Goswami has stated, a person acting in Krishna consciousness in the service of Krishna with his body, mind, intelligence, and words is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. So once we engage our body, mind, and words in the service of Krishna, we are liberated. That's what Rupa Goswami is saying. Thus, one can achieve vikarma rahityam, or freedom from unauthorized sinful activities, by engaging one's senses, mind, intelligence, and speech 24 hours daily in the service of Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that only those pious living entities who are vikarma rahita, completely free from sinful life, can achieve freedom from the illusory duality of material nature. So Krishna also says, I give them the knowledge by which they come to me, who are engaged in devotion service. And also, he said, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusions, engage themselves in my service with determination. So with determination, when we are engaged, then means faith is complete. That faith has to be there. Of course, this purport is little long, so we can stop here and take up from the point where we left off. See, anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll stop there. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri.